In today's podcast, I'm talking to David Mannheim, founder of User Conversion and course director for Advanced Conversion Rate Optimization at the Chartered Institute of Marketing. This week, User Conversion has released a white paper on which experimentation platforms should you choose. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to discuss with David the challenges that he faced in pulling this document together and what insights he collected along the way. David, what are your clients looking for when choosing a vendor?
Advice. It's such a complicated process. Look, that's one of the reasons why we wrote the report in the first place. It's a process that we've iterated on a number of times, and I don't think there's one set way or one set thing that clients tend to look for. So there's no one set feature, there's no one set proposition, or even purpose. They just need help and advice, and I'm not surprised. It's a position that I wouldn't like to be in if I was selecting a vendor, because there's so many to choose from. I think there's a stat somewhere in the white paper to suggest there are 211 types of testing and optimization platforms. But when we're looking at the bulk of the market, you're talking between 20 and 30 core experimentation platforms. That's a lot to choose from. It's analysis paralysis.
Absolutely, and I can see the challenges that most people will be faced if they haven't got a report such as this, because they're just wading through Google lists of the top 10, top 20, or whatever is the best in 2020, whatever it might be, and it must be really, really confusing. So how do you think that this report is going to help those people, other than just saying, well, here's an enormous breadth of solutions, pick which one you think fits best?
Well, hoping it gives people a process. I mean, usually, at least from experience, the way clients and retailers tend to select a platform is based on advice, because, like I mentioned, it's overwhelming. They'll ask peers, they'll ask agencies such as ourselves, they'll look for experience. But because that experience is often quite limited, this is an extensive market where even we don't have experience of all 20 or 30 platforms to the extent where we're able to fully recommend one of the 20. But what I think clients are after is that advice that is based on their challenges. So there's no one thing is the answer, but really it should be based on, okay, you as a client, as a retailer, as a business, what are your challenges? What are you trying to solve here? What does experimentation or indeed personalization mean for you and the business? Do you have challenges in marketing? Do you have challenges trying to communicate results across product teams? Okay, let us know those challenges. Now let the vendors or the platforms or indeed other parties help you solve the challenges, not through features, but through capabilities, through genuine value. It's a long-winded way of basically saying, identify what your challenges are, give them to the vendor or the platform. I'm just hoping that this white paper gives people a process that gets to a solution that's right for them, so they don't have to keep on changing every year or 2 years, which just seems to be the case.
I realise that this white paper is agnostic in that it's a platform for showing what's available, and there's some advice wrapped around that. But what do you think that people who are entering into experimentation for the first time should look for? And do you have that kind of process that says, how mature are you as an experimentation company that actually guides people down the way? Is there a kind of a 5-step process or a 10-step process or whatever?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So if you're just starting off in experimentation, it's a little bit like if you're just starting off to drive. You don't go out and buy a Ferrari. I don't care how rich you are. You're stupid if you go out and buy a Ferrari.
Yep.
And I'm sure the more enterprise type solutions that I've mentioned in the white paper won't mind me saying this, but those types of solutions probably aren't right when you're looking to walk before you can run. So I would advise trying to assess what your maturity is at the moment. There are a number of tools out there that do it. There are types of questions that you can ask yourself to identify your level of maturity. Those would include things like dev resource, number of experiments ran per year, per month, velocity, culture, how decisions are made at your business, etc., etc., etc. And if the answer is we have a low experimentation or optimization or personalization maturity, the advice is, well, start small. Go for a vendor or a platform that might offer, say, monthly subscriptions, or that might offer, is a little bit on the lower side of the investment perspective. It's a lower cost, basically, because that will enable you to say, okay, we can tweak as we go here, and we need more resources over here, and you practice what you preach. You learn and you iterate as you go.
And do you think there's an evolution in that process? So, and I mean by that companies will say, oh, this has got all the bells, all the whistles. This is something I could probably use, but then perhaps only use a fraction of it.
Oh, it happens all the time. And I think there's almost like a phase 2 to this experimentation platform white paper. And that is it is something I wanted to do, actually. And that is asking those who purchase these platforms why they move from one platform to another. So I suspect it happens a lot. And just a pure assumption, I suspect one of the reasons why it happens is because that individual or a cohort of individuals cannot understand or realize the full value and potential of the platform. And it comes down to training, experience, willingness, permission, a whole host of things. So yeah, I definitely think there's an evolution, from either one platform to the next, or indeed just trying to understand not just the capabilities of the platform, but also your challenges as a business, because they're going to evolve, right? It's a whole different challenge doing 10 experiments a month to 100 a month. You're talking a lot of scale, a lot of resource, and a lot of different practices that are involved in doing that. And it is likely that the platform that you have that gives you the ability to do 10 experiments a month might not give you the ability to do 100 a month. So you need to evolve as your platform should evolve as your challenges evolve.
And is there, I'm assuming by that, there's also the reverse, that people go on and think, oh, I can do all this, and then actually say, well, I'm only using a part of this, so I don't need to spend all that amount of money. I can look for something which is less expensive.
Yeah, totally. In these times, especially, I promised myself I wouldn't use the term unprecedented times, but I'm going to.
Okay.
In these unprecedented times, when you're looking at cost control, I think it's, at the end of the day, it just comes down to one thing: is how much value are you getting out of the platform, and therefore, where does the problem lie? Is it with you and your understanding, or is it with the platform's genuine capabilities? Because we tend to, and I think this is what the message I'm trying to communicate with this white paper is, we tend to value things based on features, not based on the value of which the platform can give us the capability to do X, Y, and Z. Let me give you an example. So a platform might turn around and say, we have a great WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get editor. You can change elements on the page to your heart's content. Some are better than others. Some are more capable than others. Absolutely fine, but they all do the same. It's a generic feature that I would say the majority of platforms offer.
Yeah.
But your challenge as a business might actually be one where your marketing teams want full control of various different elements on a page, and they lack dev resource, and therefore they need a very easy to use WYSIWYG editor that enables them to track and target different elements with a good UI, with different permissions across different teams. So I don't know, Sarah in trading can do it as opposed to Mark in marketing. And I think that's the challenge, that then the vendor can come back to you and say, okay, well, our WYSIWYG editor can do X, Y, and Z. We have these clients that are doing X, Y, and Z with it. It gives you these different capabilities. Instead, what tends to happen, because it's a very demo feature-orientated market, is platforms will just say, we have a WYSIWYG editor. It can do X, Y, and Z. But when you tailor it and contextualize it to the
You're listening to the shortened version of this podcast. To listen to the full version, visit your favourite podcast player and search for Web Trends Optimize or The Big Lift.